Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Gus, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Nate and Alvaro. Tonight, you'll be staying in Room 117, Blowout, the 1981 paranoid thriller by director Brian De Palma. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we crash into the drink with Blowout.
It began with a sound that no one was ever supposed to hear. Brian De Palma's Blowout. Now you hear it. Now you don't.
What's going on, all you sound mixing conspiracy theorists? Thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. We're back, and we are stoked. We got Blowout for you this week. This is a movie that I wasn't super familiar with up until recently. Brian De Palma, obviously, kind of familiar with some of his stuff, but yeah. What do you guys think about this movie?
What up, guys? Gus here. I saw this movie for the first time like a year or two ago. I was doing some research on Quentin Tarantino, actually, and he was talking about how Brian De Palma is one of his favorite filmmakers of like someone he looked up to, he wanted to be like. And so I just started doing more research, and actually HBO has this Spielberg documentary, and Brian De Palma was actually in it a lot. That's then cool. They ended up making a Brian De Palma one where he talks about his whole life and his work and all of that. And that's where I started getting familiar with him. I had seen a few of his movies already. Like, obviously, I've seen Scarface.
You've seen that movie?
Yeah, you ever heard of Scarface? Been watching that my entire life with my dad. It's one of his favorite movies, obviously. Yeah, so he's just someone I kind of wanted to dive into a little more. And then I know Ro has seen this movie, maybe a year ago now was the first time we saw it?
Probably around the same time.
Yeah, right? I'm pretty sure we had talked about it, like, dude, check this movie out. Yeah, man, it's a pretty banger movie.
Dude, it's so good because, I mean, like, yeah, I had never even heard of this. I'd never seen it, never heard it
Pull
referenced
this in
at
a
all.
file card.
I know, right? I almost feel kind of bad about it because then, yeah, Ro, you suggested that to me, like, maybe like five months ago or something like
Somewhere
that.
around there, yeah.
And checked it out, and I was blown away. I was like, how the hell have I not seen this movie before? It's such a fun movie, honestly. It's one of those movies like we always talk about, like, oh, they don't make these anymore kind of thing. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And knowing a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to say like I'm a huge Brian De Palma fan, but I have seen a good bit of his movies. Like we said, Scarface, like Carlito's Way, Untouchables. I actually love that movie. That's a really good one. And of course, the fucking Mission Impossible. So
Carrie, right?
Yeah,
Carrie. Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage.
That's one I do need to see. But so yeah, just kind of having an idea of what his vibe is. It was fun to go into this movie.
Yeah, he's definitely, and it sounds weird to say because he's a legend. I would say an underrated filmmaker.
Right.
And it's bound to happen when your peers are Scorsese, Spielberg, Coppola,
Because
George Lucas.
They all totally came up together, right?
They all came up at the same time, and Brian De Palma is unfortunately kind of the odd one out, but his movies you could argue, are just as good. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make that argument, but
no, please do.
You know, his movies are pretty up there. But I mean, Scorsese, like, that's the master, right? Like Coppola, he's The Godfather.
Right.
Like, he hasn't made anything as good as The Godfather.
It's hard to compete with stuff like
George
that.
Lucas has not made as many good movies, but he's probably got the biggest cultural hold on society till today.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? Like, he probably made the most relevant movie of all time. Spielberg is like the most commercial. Everybody knows who that is, you know? And so De Palma's kind of
flies under the radar, huh?
Yeah, but I feel like I would say like the quote unquote real ones know about Brian De Palma. Like, he's a filmmaker's filmmaker.
Right.
Like, every filmmaker I tend to do research on, they have some kind of link to like, oh, I like Brian De Palma a lot.
Right. And I feel like he has a very like almost like unique style in like the way that he shoots films. Like it's almost like, I don't know, like he has an interesting way of like expressing like himself through his shots, I guess. And there's a few moments throughout this film where I'm just like, what is this shot? And then it kind of comes together and you're like, oh, wow. Like, what a unique perspective. I
heard him say in an interview that he wants his movies to be like all cinematic, like as in stuff that you can only get out of the movie.
In a movie?
Like, he hates like the reverse shots of two people just talking that look exactly the same.
It's like boring,
do
right?
something. Yeah, like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Like, I had seen him in an interview with Noah Baumbach talking about how like he hates when a movie's like close up, close up, close up, close up, because it's like, okay, you're just banging us over the head with the same thing, and like, why don't you do or try something new?
And I think that works really well in this movie. Like, you do, like, these camera shots that he does, he really is allowing to like express the anxiety and the paranoia that comes with this movie. So
This movie's a technical flex. For sure.
I think
that's
so
what it
too.
is.
That's
Like on that level alone, like it is a little B movie-ish in some aspects, but the technical level is just absolutely
very
incredible.
impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because I'm more hyper aware because, you know, this movie is about a sound editor and stuff like that, but just a different layering of sounds throughout this whole movie. I'm like, I don't know if he just went super extra with it because that's what this movie is about, or if I'm just kind of paying attention more to it, but it's really good.
Hey, Ro, does this fall into the "This Is Me" category of movies?
I think so. That one for me, yeah.
Hey, I have a microphone. I walk around.
I edit.
I edit. This is me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I came across this film because what you guys are kind of talking about, Brian De Palma is regarded as one of the movie brats, one of the changed cinema.
The new wave of American cinema.
Exactly.
wave cinema.
Often overlooked, but always respected by his peers. I had read that he got the idea for this movie, I think in the same interview that you were talking about, just based off of asking somebody for, like, there's this sound of this wind that we always keep using. Like, that really happened.
Yeah, there's a
with him.
line in the movie, because John Travolta plays a sound editor, like you guys said, where the wind, it's such a bad wind effect,
Yeah.
right? And the director, is telling him that we've heard this before a million times and like do something new. And Brian De Palma literally told the sound guy that before.
Interesting.
And so he
They
went-
use it in the movie.
And
Yeah,
that's,
and
and
it
that's
is
where he
really
got the idea for the script from. And then it's obviously from watching, a lot of people compare this obviously to like Blow Up and the Conversation, I think it is, by Francis
Yeah.
Ford Coppola. So he really like looked up to Francis Ford Coppola, and he took a lot from these two movies, the structure wise of these movies, and made his own version of it. And then kind of what you guys were adding to it, though, that Brian De Palma has a very interesting way of shooting things. And it hearing him talk, it seems like it comes from him loving movies so much. That's his homage to the people that he likes. He shows it through his movies. He's very technical on like a direction thing. He says that he admires that in cinema is the only art that you can show the main character sees and the audience sees the same information at the same time. It's like, so you could use that at your disposal, be like, use that manipulation. Like, as a director, you're supposed to create this character that your audience is very invested in and then destroy it. And he learned that from Hitchcock, talking to him. So I think he's overlooked, and that's how I came across this film. Because people, you said though too, like Gus, that some people say this is his best film. So I just wanted to see what was up with it. I saw it, I loved it. And then you said you had seen it already, and then I recommended it to you, and then even you said
Loved
last
it.
year was your one of your favorite movies that you came across last year.
This
Easily.
is a movie where it's like every director, if you like ask them what's their list of like their movies, I've seen Edgar Wright, Noah Baumbach, and Quentin Tarantino all say that this is like one of their like 20 favorite movies of all time.
yeah.
And those are three very different directors as well. So he's one of those guys where it's just people look up to him, and they've like, being a filmmaker's filmmaker, like I said earlier, just highly appreciated by his peers, overlooked by everyone else.
You can just tell that he really put in a lot of time and effort into crafting this, and like it resonates because I feel like this is a movie that anybody could watch and enjoy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really well done.
Yeah, definitely. He's on. I feel like at this point in his career that he was kind of on a hot streak, because prior to this film, he had done Dress to Kill, which I believe is a remake, but stars Michael Caine and Nancy Allen, his wife at the time. That's super Hitchcock. That's like a voyeurist movie. You know what I mean? It's got some gruesome violence in it. I definitely recommend that. I watched that one before Blowout. It was on HBO. Like, I was just going through like the Turner Classic section of HBO. And I've seen that like 2 times now. That one's kind of got like, this is like an obsession of De Palma, like this Hitchcock style of film of like using sound equipment or even like piecing things together. Like, he's big into the like, let's piece this together.
Yeah,
You know what
it's
I
almost
mean?
like a specified like job profession that somebody has that allows them to like uncover this mystery that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because in Dress to Kill, there's like a teenage son character who's trying to find his mom. And he uses like he stakes out some guy. He's taking pictures of the office. He's going back and looking at him. It's just you know what I mean.
It's so good.
The process.
Yeah, like it's his thing. Like he loves showing the process.
Like let's uncover this mystery together. It's cool.
Yeah, and so what another director might do is have this be like a quick cutting scene of like
a
a quick cut to the lab, a quick cut of the photos,
almost like a montage.
Yeah, like a montage, like just something to overthink. And De Palma's like, let me make an entire
like
movie
the
out of
movie is
that.
about this, yeah.
Yeah.
And it works so well. Like it's just, you really do. This is a movie that you really get sucked into. I feel like you almost just kind of get put in the world because it opens with a scene that it's not related to the movie. You know what I mean? Like it's
commentary on movies.
Exactly. It's this B movie that they're producing, and the first time I saw it, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then it kind of you get put back, and you're like, oh, here we go. It just kind of sets the stage for the fact that he's like,
He's definitely throwing shots at 80s horror movies.
campy horror movie.
Yeah.
It's almost like I feel like we've talked about this a lot in the podcast, like meta movie. Like it's a very like commenting on itself by starting off with the B movie. Like you said, it gets compared to being a really good B movie. And it's funny that we've said that because we said Tarantino's like obviously regarded sometimes as the master of that, but of course you ask him, who did he get that from, or where did he get influenced that from? And it's a film like Blowout, and they get that really good B film type of editing and shooting. Honestly,
I mean, shit, man. Even back in the day, Hitchcock was considered like a one-trick pony. Mm-hmm. You know, like, oh, okay, he does genre, he does the thriller, suspense. It's the same shit every single time you go. But in other parts of the world, he's regarded as like, this is the greatest filmmaker of all time. So it happens. But I think, what do they say? Like, time makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like the longer you get away from these things, you're like, actually, this is like really fucking
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I give the synopsis?
Yeah, let's do
All right,
the
I have a little synopsis. So, Blowout, 1981. While recording sound effects for a slasher film, Jack Terry, played by John Travolta, stumbles upon a real-life horror, a car careening off a bridge and into a river. Jack jumps in the water and fishes out Sally, played by Nancy Allen, also the wife of Brian De Palma, from the car, but the other passenger is already dead, a governor intending to run for president. As Jack does some investigating of his tapes and starts a perilous romance with Sally, he enters a tangled web of conspiracy that might leave him dead. So yeah, it's just it basically sets up a total like paranoid thriller classic.
Yeah, it's part noir, definitely, but it's obviously not black and white.
Right. It's like almost like a modern noir kind of.
It's such an 80s movie.
It's really
right?
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
Like I know the 80s, the beginning of it, you had mentioned like it still looks kind of 70s.
It's
like
the fact
decades
that,
take a while before they get their own look.
It's
right?
like 81, like that's a 70s movie, you know?
Yeah. But I don't know, man. There's just something about it when you are watching like 80s movies in particular where like they just feel so uniquely of that time. The 70s ones, you can just tell because of how old they look for the most part.
Right.
Because if you're not watching a remastered cut, I feel like in the 70s is right before they really got like the sound editing and mixing down. And like you could watch a 70s movie and be like, that kind of sounds like shit.
Yeah.
And it's just because they never like, restored it or gave it a 4K cut or something like that. But I don't know, man. There's just something so particular about the 80s where you can totally pick it out.
Yeah.
Same thing with the 90s too.
Yeah,
I feel like the
straight up.
90s is just like that.
They do give off their own little vibes.
I think it helps or doesn't help. I don't know what side you'd want to take on that. Like John Travolta is the main actor. It's like it's such a staple piece to that era. Like you see a movie with him in it, and you automatically know what era you're in. And such of like we talked about him. I guess you could argue he's a good actor, bad actor, but like these movies in this era is his golden. So whenever you see him, then it's like it's kind of very, very 80s.
He was a good actor for a time,
Right.
But
I was like, I honestly don't know how I feel about John Travolta,
Very
but I love him in this movie.
in my lifetime, he's been bad.
Yeah.
But when you go back and you watch the likes of Grease and Saturday Night Fever, and obviously Pulp Fiction is his second wave.
Yeah.
But then even post Pulp Fiction,
But what
how
happened
many
after
good
that?
movies is he really in?
Like we're talking about The Punisher. Like,
Even Tarantino said that like coming from this movie is where he thought he would make a good character for Pulp Fiction. But
and he was using a movie that's like 10 years old at that point as an
and-
example.
And I was looking at like after Blowout, he again just kind of goes into obscure and does a lot of those campy folk kind of like movies that John Travolta that you see on TV sometimes. And so then it wasn't until Pulp Fiction for something comes up to him where it's regarded as something that could win a prize or as a good film. Everything else is very mediocre. So this is like you said, this is 3 years after Grease. He's in his golden age.
Yeah, I mean, he really was good in that period of like, do you know if Saturday Night Fever or Grease is first? I think Grease is.
I think Saturday Night Fever is first.
I think Saturday Night Fever 75.
I honestly don't remember.
And then if Blowout is 81, that means Grease is somewhere in the middle.
Yes, Saturday Night Fever is 77, Grease is 78.
Oh, wow.
1 year apart.
So we're off all the way.
Back to back.
But, yeah, that's definitely his golden age.
Swordfish?
Oh,
No.
my God.
You're really gonna pull his bullshit? Pull his in a 5 card.
I forgot about that movie.
You're just gonna act like because Halle Berry showed titties in that movie that's actually a good movie.
It isn't? That's not what makes a movie good. Just kidding.
Well, actually,
Another movie. Well, you were looking that up right now. Another one that I saw on there, which is like, how do you guys feel about this movie? Is Face Off. Yeah.
Oh.
Where like that was a movie I saw when I was like a teenager. One of my cousins who's a little older than me, he's like, dude, you have to see this movie. And I mean, I don't know how I
have to watch it again.
Is John Travolta good? Is he not good?
I would have to rewatch
I'd
that
have to
movie
rewatch it.
because I don't know. I saw that a long time ago, and I just remember being like so funny. All I can think are the memes about it.
Yeah, I mean, Face Off.
But even that's such an interesting two characters to have for a movie. It's Nick Cage and John Travolta.
Yeah, they just said fuck it, honestly.
Yeah, that's so sick.
That's like that's
We didn't realize how good we had
feat
it.
in its own.
They should make that now. Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. and they switch faces.
Oh, man.
All right. Do we want to talk about the rest of the cast?
Yeah. We can talk about Nancy Allen.
Not a fan.
I was gonna say if we're not sure about how we feel about John Travolta, how do you feel about Nancy Allen?
I mean, I haven't seen enough of her movies to know if this is actually how she speaks, but I'm just not a fan of her speaking voice.
It's
honestly.
weird. Yeah, it's almost like I watched the movie with my brother and we were joking like, is she like the OG Manic Pixie Dream Girl or something? Because she's just
What
like
are you talking about?
she's the ultimate fucking ditz, and it gets to the point where it almost detracts from the movie. I feel
I'm not wearing any makeup. Yeah,
like what? Like
she's whatever in this movie, and that's another reason why I think this movie kind of trends towards the B movie category. Is that like almost none of the actors in here do I enjoy or even know who they are. And yes, it's almost a 40-year. Well, shit, it is 40 years old.
Yeah.
So I could just be showing my age here and be like, maybe there's a bunch of character actors in here that other people would recognize. But for me, this is like almost a cast of John Travolta, Nancy Allen, and John Lithgow. And I'm like,
that's about it.
yeah, I don't know who any of these other people are.
I mean, honestly, nobody else really has that big of an importance. I mean, I guess who is it?
Dennis Franz.
Yeah, that plays Manny. He has a good role.
You don't know Dennis Franz?
Exactly, but I've never seen him before ever. So
He's like Brian De Palma uses him a lot. He's in Dressed to Kill, Body Double, Scarface.
See, and I don't even recognize him. That's what I mean
him.
about these character actors, though, is that
The Mighty Ducks.
it might just be so, if we were older or we would been around when this actually came out, maybe I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy was in this, he was in this, he was in this. But 40 years later, the name Dennis Franz is not sticking out to me.
But John Lithgow does,
Yeah.
So like,
Lord Farquaad.
Exactly. But like in terms of people who were really good, obviously still do stand out. John Travolta still stands out. I do admire De Palma in this for just for wanting to put his wife in. I guess that like I could admire that. That's cool. She does detract from the film though.
Yeah.
I will not deny that.
Some of these 80s movies just have bad female lead characters.
Yeah.
They had no respect.
yeah.
Agreed.
But the dude, the Dennis Franz guy, when we were watching, my brother was saying it reminded him of Tim Robinson from I Think You Should Leave. Hey, what do you know, guy? Yeah. He's like all over the place.
He's hamming it up in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
Hey, what are you talking about? Did I see you crash?
He took a dip in the drink.
Was he in control? He crashed.
Yeah.
I was out shooting a new film stock very fast. You see, I do a lot of my work at night.
It's so funny.
There's one other character who really stands out to me. He's got like I think it's the best line delivery in this movie. Do you have is he on there on your cast list?
Yes.
I think I just saw him right now.
He's John McMartin.
Yeah, I think that's
he
him.
plays Lawrence Henry. So John McMartin.
He's like FBI, CIA cop.
He's I don't know if he's that or if he's just involved with the governor and he's like, but yeah, whatever.
He cleans shit up.
Yeah, he's a cleanup man.
Yeah, he's a cleanup guy. similar to Ray Donovan. He's like an 80s Ray Donovan. But he's got this hilarious line reading that it just sticks out to me. And I guess we're giving a bit of the plot away here, but the governor is caught up in like a scandal with a woman of the night.
A woman of the night.
A woman of the night. I like that.
And they're trying to frame him, make him look as bad as possible for the news press. And this Lawrence character tells John Travolta, like, you need to forget about this. You need to let it go. It never happened. And John Travolta's kind of rebelling. We learn why later. Mm-hmm. It's very vital to his character. But like this guy tells him, he's like, what, do you want his wife to know that he died with his hands up some girl's skirt? He's like, well, would you rather she read about it in the papers?
In the papers. It is so perfect.
It's perfect character acting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I think that's like when you said it's like a noir. That's like something you would hear in a noir.
Yeah, like in some 40s movie, right?
Like the way that he says it, like in the papers, you know, not in the newspaper.
Who do you
like,
think he is, Humphrey Bogart? What, do you want to read about it in the papers?
Oh man.
All right, but I think we can get into the actual story.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Because this cast is not really much to talk about. No disrespect.
No,
but it's just,
this movie's carried by the story.
Me.
Like it really is. It starts out, obviously we talked about John Travolta he's a sound mixing guy. We talked about the opening scene. And basically what happens is one night when he's out recording new sounds, that's a really cool scene too. I really like that scene.
Yeah, this is where the technical flex
and
really
I
starts
really like the juxtaposition between this scene because you get the shots from behind everything that he's recording, and then when he re-listens to the tape later, it's from his perspective.
That's the coolest. Yeah,
and I just think it's really cool. But so he's out there recording New Wind, like we were talking about earlier. You know, sounds of the night.
You get the cool shot here of him with the owl.
With the owl, yeah, that's so iconic. I really like that. But then he hears a car that's kind of screeching, and all of a sudden he turns and looks, and this car barrels into the river that he's standing on the bridge over, and he jumps in to rescue whoever was in the car, and he ends up pulling out. He sees that there's two people in the car. It looks like the male that's in the car is dead, and he pulls out this lady and rescues her.
This is one of those 80s, 90s moments where it's like a jump scare with the dead body.
Mm-hmm, it is. It's like Jaws. It reminds me of Jaws.
Yeah, like
That's
Jaws,
exactly
right?
what it reminded me of. Like straight up. And honestly, I think that was probably maybe on purpose.
It's effective.
Yeah.
The music comes in really good there.
Yeah, it does.
To like try to save
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
And the
music is hard.
It's
in
incredible.
This movie.
The music also really carries it.
I did want to say something about the opening scene that I thought is, well, rewatching it yesterday, I was like, it's really funny how it starts off with like making that fun of like the campy's 80s horror, and then it just cuts and she has that really awful scream,
Terrible
right?
Scream, yeah.
But then we get like just how like a bit of a character development for John Travolta is like he just starts laughing too, and the director's obviously trying to be serious, and he's like, "Come on, like I thought you're like we're gonna have to dub that over," and then I just thought there was this little funny thing. They're back and forth. He tells them like, you know, I think this is our best picture, right? And I just thought it was funny because he starts. They've had like 4 films in 2 years, and so by the point that it goes to him recording stuff at night. I just thought it was funny because he's just kind of trying to please this director type of guy. He already has a bunch of stock like. Oh, because he said the wind is from the library. He's talking about we've used this a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So he's very skilled at it at his profession. I just thought it was funny, like him asking him to go get some new stuff because the wind sucked and the scream sucks is how we get here to the point of him being at the bridge.
Yep.
He's kind of does not like doing his job.
He kind of doesn't seem to really want to do anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then so he ends up saving that girl, and that takes us to the hospital.
Well, first we can't skip past this. Is that as he's diving into the river, we see a man who was under the bridge take off, and
we do see that. That is
take off running, and that's very vital later.
Yeah,
on.
that is.
Hey, I was shooting a film stock at night.
Exactly.
In the interview that you're talking about that he's having with Noah, he talks about how at first when you're watching it, and maybe you just watch it one time, that you might not notice that there's somebody in the back, but he leaves the camera set there so you can see him running through the bridge.
It's a super wide shot.
And then when you see him running through the bridge, it's like, oh, I did see something there, you know? And again, just speaks on like how good of a filmmaker Brian De Palma is.
Yeah, he's putting it all out there for you to see.
That's a good point. He leaves it there for everybody. And then yeah, when we're in the hospital, it's a really chaotic part. It's a really chaotic part of the movie, and John Travolta's getting interviewed by this policeman, and he's basically telling him, he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, I pulled the girl out of the car. Like, what's going on?" He's
No,
like,
you didn't.
What girl?
What girl?
What girl are you talking about? He's
girl
like,
I
"What do you
brought
mean?"
here.
He's like, "The girl that's literally in the room next to me." He's like, "What girl? There's no girl." And he just kind of like, "What the fuck is going on here?" It kind of sets up that something's off. And then you end up getting the scene which you were talking about with what's his name, Lawrence Henry, and that's when he's basically like, "You just need to forget about it." And then you find out that it was this governor who was in the running for potentially the
He's
next
probably
president.
gonna win. Yeah, it looked like, because in the beginning it starts.
He had my vote.
Yeah, the cop, right?
Or yeah, in the beginning when we get the scene of the TV playing on half of the screen and him editing, they kind of said how in the polls that he was leading by 62% to 30 or like 20 something. So he was gonna win. Like, he's heavily favorable, which is why they're trying to clean this up.
Right. So yeah, dead potential next president. He was in the car with the lady of the night. They don't want his family to know. They're trying to clean it up. And John Travolta, his character Jack Terry, he's like, "Well, I was there. She was there. I don't know if I can keep quiet about this kind of thing." And so yeah, that kind of sets up the movie.
This is the moral quandary of this movie.
Yeah,
what would you do?
That's my question to you guys: is would you say anything? Like, how do you think you'd react?
It's none of my goddamn business.
I think so. I find interesting about this is I think now most people are about keeping to themselves because we've seen too much examples of trying to do something and it backshots on you sometimes. But I think the premise of this movie shadows a lot of Kennedy, right? This is a lot. It had to do with JFK. At the time, people were very skeptical of the government. So if there's something to uncover here that the government will get shown for what it really is, they probably were willing to do it.
Brian De Palma is a self-acclaimed JFK assassination buff in his own words.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like he just said he
Because
was
who
obsessed
wasn't
with it.
at that time,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
guess, right?
But
They didn't have the internet.
I mean,
There's
you're
nothing
right.
else to do.
I mean, what you had Vietnam, you had Watergate, you had JFK. I guess you're right. Like, people were very distrustful of the government, so it probably does play more
Insert
into
Oliver
that time.
Stone.
Whereas, honestly, whereas like 2022, everybody just wants to stay in their own fucking lane because
Everybody
nobody wants
now
to
is like,
get
yeah,
caught.
I know the government's corrupt.
Yeah,
Could you leave
exactly.
me alone?
There's this line where Travolta later says like does nobody care about conspiracy theories, or does nobody care? Like, no.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. He's like, "Does nobody care about this?" And like,
Now-
nobody does.
Now it's funny to hear it because
Yeah,
but
no.
like then, yes, somebody like character like John Travolta. It also has to do with you kind of said him being selfish. He knows that because he's a bystander to this whole thing that could be happening, they're probably gonna want to off him. So that's like the main concern here.
Yeah, bruh, aliens could come down from the sky and I'd be like, how does that affect my life? Are they good? Are they bad?
'Cause-
Am I still going to work tomorrow?
because the decision that he makes to not leave this alone, I mean, that fucks him. Like it
Cost him a lot.
It costs him a lot, and I think throughout this movie, he's extremely selfish. I think he's given a lot of opportunities to either be more careful about what he's doing or think about the other people that he's involving, and rather than doing that, he's just so concerned about getting down to the truth that he's almost reckless with it, and it costs a lot.
Let's not do like a full movie breakdown.
Yeah, no.
But so that's your main course.
That's
of
what's
this
going
movie.
on,
That's
yeah.
what's gonna take. That's honestly what's taking place throughout the entire movie. There's a subplot of the cover up. Obviously, that's where John Lithgow comes in. You have
him trying to uncover everything.
You have John Travolta trying to uncover everything. Nancy Allen has got a twist in there with what's his name? Dennis
character.
Franz.
Yeah, Manny Carp.
Yeah.
Manny.
With Carp,
So Carp and Sally are maybe not who they say they are either. It's a tangled web
It
for
is.
sure.
There's a lot going on.
But it gets untangled. by
It
the end of
does
this
get
movie,
untangled.
honestly.
Yeah. Oh my
The
god.
other evidence that I have of like John Travolta, like an interesting dynamic that I saw was at first when he sees why am I dropping her name right now?
Nancy Allen?
Nancy,
Sally.
yeah. Sally. She sees Sally like at the hospital. It seems like he's interested in her kind of in a way. Like in a corny 80s kind of like, of course the two characters are interested in each other. But then when he finds out that she's a woman of the night through the pictures at Manny's spot, because he's like he is a photographer. everything kind of switches.
He makes experimental art, quote unquote.
Yeah, and then, like the cop is like saying that, right?
I guess. Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you're a friend of Manny's." Like everybody wants to see what, and like anyway. So I just thought it was interesting that at first he seems very interested in her. As soon as that happens, is when it kind of becomes more like I need to, quote unquote, use her to uncover this. Because she knows more.
Speaking of being a selfish person, after he saves her, they spend the night together in a hotel room. Nothing happens.
Right.
It's not anything weird. He actually spends the night going through the recording over again, right? But he tells her the next day, like, "Hey, I saved your life. The least you could do is get a drink."
That's what I was
with
gonna,
me."
that's what I was
And I'm
gonna say. I was like,
"Ah,
you're gonna hold that? Like, I mean, I
giga
guess.
cringe.
Yeah, for real. Like for real.
I guess that's watching it with 2022 eyes,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
But that's what some of that 80s corny meet cute shit you would see in movies. You
It's
know
just
what I
like,
mean?
that's kinda uncomfortable.
We started dating because, I saved her life.
And I forced her to go hang out with me. He's like, okay.
And he's like you said,
She
like,
owes me one.
and she's like in the hospital that whole line. Like I don't have any makeup on. He's hitting on her.
That's not what I was coming. I'm like, she's like on a lot of drugs right now. Like she's sedated, and you're kind of trying to pick
She
her
does,
up.
yeah. I mean, she probably is, but
'Cause the
her whole
doctor-
performance feels like
The
that.
doctor,
honestly.
the doctor said he's like she's sedated or whatever.
Oh
but-
yeah. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
get no makeup on. Fucking Betty Boop. Oh man, you want to talk about John Lithgow in this movie?
I always want to talk about Lord Farquaad.
Dude, I mean, I honestly think, I mean, obviously this is not true, but have you guys seen Dexter?
My
I
wife
haven't.
loves Dexter.
Okay, I don't know. Whoever's seen Dexter, like this really almost sets up his character in that show. Like the birth of him, I kind of have it in my head, but I think he's good in this movie.
Some people don't like him.
Yeah,
apparently,
some people
right?
don't like him. I guess I can kind of see where that's coming from in the fact that he kind of comes out of nowhere. Like he's just a villain that is just a villain. Like he almost has no, like realistically, like what is his drive? Because even his boss
Money, probably.
but his boss that is paying him is literally telling him, he's like, we're done. Like, we don't need to do this anymore. And he's like, no, I'm going to go kill everybody.
Terminate.
You know what I mean? So he's interesting. But I like the transition from to basically a serial killer. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the parts of the cover up is like, okay, well, if we start to, and it's a smart thing to do. I mean, that feels weird to say, but it's smart on their end. Is like, okay, if we start to kill these Nancy Allen lookalikes, once it's her time, she fits the profile of the victims.
Exactly.
Versus this being a government conspiracy
Right.
of like, this person just got taken out of nowhere.
Because I really like that. Because when he...
Would anyone have even noticed though back in the day?
I don't know.
Is the
I don't know.
80s still a lawless time where you could just kill someone and completely get away with it?
I mean, he kills her, and then he's the one that calls in to uncover the body through a public phone,
Yeah.
And they're asking him, well, where are you? But like, you think I'm really going to tell
Yeah,
you
they
where I
ain't.
am?
I mean, I'm not trying to sound awful here, but it's like, is Nancy Allen's character such an important person that anyone would even notice that she went missing?
Honestly.
It seems like one of those kinds of stories,
Yeah.
right?
Because I honestly think that, well, what happened, I think, is that because she's supposed to get on that train or whatever, and then she doesn't, and he's waiting at the train station, and he sees the girl get off in the market or whatever that is, and he follows her, because I think he thinks that it's Nancy Allen.
No, he does.
All this stuff
Right?
is so Hitchcock.
It is. It's really good. And so
Super.
he follows her, he tracks her down, he kills her, and then when he realizes it's not her, he has this like little part where he looks at this billboard and it's for the Liberty Day celebration, and he sees the bell on it, and I think that's when he gets the idea to make it look like a serial killing, and it starts this subplot of him just killing these women to try to frame it.
Duh. Why
Like,
didn't I think of that?
No, why don't I just make it look like a bunch of killings? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's really interesting. I like it.
I think that whole character is just De Palma's like that same obsession about the JFK assassination embodied into a movie. Because we get the scene where, because we were just rewatching it, and he's replacing the tire to make it seem like it just blew out. And he even puts his fingers through it like that. And that's very reminiscent of like the whole report that they did on like JFK's body was touched before it landed in Fort Worth, Texas. So like a lot of people picture it as being that like JFK's head got a surgery on, and like it's the same bullet hole, entrance here, exit here, and it even kind of shows that. And I think like that character there, how would the government try to make it seem like killing JFK is something that, it's just somebody crazy did it. It's you get somebody who like Oswald, somebody nobody cares about, and all of a sudden it's just somebody who was rogue and
Rather
crazy.
than to distract from.
Because you don't get like an
bigger
experienced
story.
Marine, you don't get an experienced Marine to do it, because then obviously it becomes obvious that it's like, oh, the government did it. But if you make a series of like, oh, there's all this assassination with like his brother after Jeff, then you kind of make it like, oh, this is just something that happens.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I really do feel like John Lithgow's character is Burke in the movie, and I feel like Burke is a really good, like, air quotes, they, like them, like in conspiracy theories. Like, he really is like they.
There's
Like,
a joke on that.
He's in your basement. He is like watching you. He's following you everywhere you go. Like, it's really unnerving, honestly. Like, he's hacking your phone. He is doing this shit, and he's just a really good character.
Do you like the movie trope of like the hired gun or the like? I watched Kimmy, and I know you did too, right, Ro? And I was thinking to myself, why do they always have this trope of like the villain knows how to do everything, right? Like, I'm a serial killer, and I'm also a master hacker, and I'm also OP strong. I'll fuck somebody up.
I mean,
and I'll also do that. Like, what the fuck?
Is it a trope? Yes, but at the same time, like, if you're gonna hire somebody to do that shit, it's gonna be somebody that knows how to do all that stuff. You know what I mean?
I guess.
I would think, but
then who is Burke? Is he one of these trained military guys? Because you can't. What Joe Schmo just knows how to do all of this stuff? Right?
No idea. You don't get any of that.
I mean, not to take away from this movie, but that's an overall trope that I have a problem with.
It is a trope, but I do think it almost works well in this story because it's supposed to be such this grand conspiracy that he is almost like, just like a dark figure. Like, he almost doesn't matter who the fuck he is. Like, he's they.
There's a joke on that when John Travolta goes to the police office. And then he's explaining to the commissioner like what's happening. He's like, who's they? Them? They're ruining your life?
Yeah.
Oh, like, and the kind of what you're talking about. Like, it is.
It is they. Like, he is. Like, he did. They did wipe my tapes.
He is they.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it works. I like him.
I like him too.
Yeah.
We definitely have to talk about John Travolta's past. Well, his character's past. I don't want to talk about John Travolta's past. But
Terry's past.
Yeah, Terry's
Jack
past.
Terry.
And this is really would allude to why he is in this position in the first place. I think this just snowballs in with that whole government conspiracy theory stuff and how, like, not trusting the government. Kind of reminded me of the Al Pacino movie Serpico, where his name's Jack, right? Jack Terry.
Yeah, Jack Terry.
Jack Terry used to be, what was he, a cop?
He worked for the cops. I don't know if
Kind of.
He did sound for the
He
cops.
was doing,
We'll say that.
yeah, he was doing sound for the for the cops.
he would wire people
Or PI,
and like, do all that
basically.
stuff.
Private investigator type of stuff.
Some kind of cop job.
Yeah.
Anyways,
He's on patrol.
yeah, he ends up costing somebody their life because of a malfunction with his sound equipment, and he kind of holds that with him throughout, obviously till now, in the movie. And that's really why he's not going to let this go, is because of, well, what happened to him in his past.
This is almost like his shot at redemption, I guess.
I would say, though, too, you bringing up that point probably makes sense why when the director tells him to go do something, it almost bugs him to do his job. It's like not the exact thing that he wanted to do. It's like he's in the movies now because something so terrible happened. So he probably resents his job very much.
Yeah, that's true. He probably still wants to be out there catching bad guys, doing undercover work and all that. And we see that in movies all the time. It's like one bad thing happens.
I want to get back to my old life.
And it's like, yeah, I'm done with this now. I have to leave this behind. Because there was an accident.
That's a movie trope.
Yeah, I'm going to go live in my cabin in the mountains.
Yeah, exactly. I've fucking seen that trope even now, like with what was that Taylor Sheridan movie with Angelina Jolie where she's the firefighter? Came out last year.
I don't think I saw it.
Same trope. Like, I'm haunted by my past.
Yeah.
It
is such an overused trope, but we get it in here.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Besides the characters, right? Those are the characters you wanted to mostly touch up on?
Yeah. I mean, there's no one really else to talk about.
Not
right?
really. I don't think so.
I just think what this movie, we touched upon it in the beginning, that makes it really interesting to watch or puts it up there for me too, is just watching it. Like what you said, it just seems a flex of like technicality of what you could do. So like I brought up to you the scene of like the owl looked into it, to diopter lens so basically there's two focal points. So you could put two things in full focus. And they were talking about like in the studio system, it was really easy to kind of get shots like that for Hitchcock because they would shoot something and then they would go to the editing board and they'd be like, oh, so and so's hat isn't in focus here, like get everybody back. And it's because it's a studio system. They were all literally lived on the lot, or the production is making this movie, so everybody come back. Like, this is the movie we're releasing this year, and you could do that. But fast forward anything past the studio system, past the 50s, you can't do stuff like that anymore. So you bring in something like a diopter lens because it's like Brian De Palma knows in the scene where John Lithgow is looking at the picture of I have to kill her, and there's a look-alike at a distance. Both of these things are important. So like how do you do that? How do you show two things of importance at the same time? Split screen and diopter lens. And I think those little techniques that he used in this movie are like heavy standouts of why this movie.
That is what I was talking about with the not having things, or that everything should be cinematic in your movie. He was saying that like, why in movies do you decide that this just should be blurry? Like, that's not how life works either. Exactly. Like, if I'm looking at you and I can still see the stuff to the left of me, it's not blurry. It's just not in my point of view. But that's just one of those things he hates, and that's why he uses it so much. It's like, come on, we're making a movie. We could do anything. The least we could do is put both people in focus. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's funny that that's such a big deal when it's like, dude, your fucking iPhone can do that now.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, this movie making technology, wow, everyone's in focus. Like, now your iPhone's like, I scan that face, recognize that one, boop, perfect picture.
Crazy. One of my favorite scenes that I think goes into what we're talking about with just his ability to kind of, make a movie is when you get John Lithgow's character and you see that he's in like their basement or somebody and he's hacking their phone or whatever. And it kind of, the camera like goes through like the basement entrance and it kind of comes up this wall and it's almost like, what the fuck are we like looking at? And it kind of follows this wire and you see that there's like a tape recorder set up. And it's just like, you don't see shots like that very often where it's almost like, what is the point of this? And it's just this slow taking you into the fact that somebody's recording their conversations. And like, it's so good, man.
You get revealed what is happening before you get revealed who who is doing it. Slowly like letting you into the mystery of like there's something happening, and then it like he has that power as a director. He's like using it. Be like, I'm gonna reveal to you when I want you to know this information.
It's so obvious, like an obvious choice that he directed the first Mission Impossible.
It makes total
sense,
right?
Like because of these types of shots.
Yeah, it really
or
does.
Like if you watch Snake Eyes or Dress to Kill or anything, it's like he's not making spy movies, but he's kind of making spy movies.
Like,
you know
like
what
really,
I mean?
yeah, like average people spy movies. Like,
yeah,
for
like
real.
he's very obsessed with that idea of spying on people,
really
and so was Hitchcock. And he wears that on his sleeve. Like you cannot separate him from his obsession / love for Hitchcock.
Yeah,
you really can't. It's like trying to. It's a dumb comparison, but it's like how Kobe and Michael Jordan, like you could put them side by side doing the same move, and you're like, oh shit! Like Brian De Palma literally wants to be Hitchcock Jr.
Yeah.
They call him the B-side Hitchcock. Like I was looking at some stuff. That's his nickname. That's one of his nicknames.
He wears that proudly too. Yep. It's not something he hides.
And I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No,
like
it's not.
I think that these are great movies. Like these are really enjoyable to watch.
Speaking of him, I don't want to get too far off of the movie, but like the Mission Impossible thing that he did that in his interview with Noah Baumbach, he talks about like that some directors, and the more successful they are, the less willing they are to take a risk and try something new outside of their style. And I recently complained about that with The French Dispatch and
Last Night in Soho, or no?
Yeah, well, kind of. That movie had other problems but it wasn't so much the style. Or like how with The Hateful Eight, how I told you, like, okay, this for me is like where I've had too much of your Tarantino style, or like with The French Dispatch, I'm over the Wes Anderson shtick for this movie. And he's like, the more successful they are, the less likely they are going to try something new. But like as a filmmaker, you should want to challenge yourself to like not be stuck in your own style. So then for him to make these like voyeurist noir mystery thrillers and then to do like Mission Impossible, like that to me is like, okay, I do want to see Quentin Tarantino do the stupid Star Trek movie.
Yeah, right.
I do want to see Wes Anderson take on something that's completely out of his like realm of what you would expect, you know? And it's like, maybe they're going to fail, but I really appreciate that about Brian De Palma and his work from what I've seen is like just diving into new things instead of just being like, I'm going to do the same exact thing.
Like you get Carrie, you get Mission Impossible, you get Blowout, you get
Dress to Kill.
You get.
I mean, some of these are alike, like
Yeah.
Dress to Kill and Blowout, and even like Snake Eyes to some point are all kind of like the same. They have so many of his touches. Like, even though I
Double
haven't seen
too.
a lot of his movies, I've only seen like 6 or 7. You can recognize the style, but I do like that he tried something like so different. Like, how do you go from Carrie to Mission Impossible?
And
Right.
and I think interesting. I think I got it from the same interview where he talks about he thought of this movie and it's like a B movie premise, but he always had John Travolta in mind to play it. And then John got really famous, and so then Noah asked him like, "Did you have to change anything for that?" And like, well, no. He's like, because I had success with Dress to Kill, so the studio was willing to like, this is your guys' idea, like we'll let you go ahead and do it. And I think that only happens what you said. Like, studio is very comfortable with like your formula works, we'll let you keep going. But Brian took that and was like, well, I'm gonna do something different and see if it works out. And it's just because the kind of character that he is, the kind of director that he is, he didn't like do the same thing kind
The
of.
point that you just brought up about the production company just like trusting him, I don't know if you remember this, but the producer of the movie during the making of the movie ended up taking over their production studio.
Oh, really?
So he went from being
yeah.
his producer to the head of the production company. So they were like, fuck it, let it rip.
Do
Like,
whatever you want.
I already was backing you to the heads.
That's really cool.
And now that I am the head, we're just going to
You got
go
free
full
reign?
stop with this thing. And
That's
like,
actually really cool.
let you do your thing. Because this movie was also a pain in the ass to make.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna
He
bring
talks
up.
about that a box with like 10 sets of like film in it was stolen.
Damn.
So like the parade scene in this movie, like one of the
Yeah.
most vital things was just taken away. And it was like only, I think they said maybe 2 or 3 other times in like the whole history of Hollywood have the masters gone missing like that.
Wow.
Where they had to, and because of that, like
The studio
having the
system.
production company having his back, they had to reshoot everything. And it was like the fireworks sequence towards the end, it took them a whole night to light that, like from as soon as it got dark to like 6 a.m. the next day. They never even took a shot off. And
That's
yeah,
fucking
like
crazy.
they
I
spent
didn't
a
know
lot of
that.
time just like, and it's so interesting that this movie, what it's about, and then that kind of stuff actually happening in real
Yeah.
life. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Your movie about conspiracy theories, and then your movie got stolen.
Yeah, your shit
Then
actually
you had
got
to
nabbed.
go back and do more shit. Like, yeah,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And he was just saying because he still doesn't know to this day. Like, it's not like they ever found him.
They just never. Came
So
to
it's
that.
not like it was some kid, or
Yeah.
was it they?
Yeah, yeah.
You know
John
what I
John
mean?
Lithgow's like,
Because
I'm
they
gonna
said
take
they put the boxes in the back of a truck to go get cut and properly processed in L.A. And so
Never came back.
and then like the truck stopped at a rest stop to put gas. Then when he came back, they had opened the back and just took the boxes. So
Wild.
it could be anybody obviously trying to take boxes. Like they didn't know what was
Yeah,
in there.
it's like how people steal Amazon boxes now.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's in here. I'm just
Yeah.
taking it.
But then imagine somebody opens that and they just see a bunch of film. They probably just threw it away or they burned it. And it's like such an integral
So
part
sad.
to
It's
It's like
Hollywood.
American Dad when they find the Fast and the Furious script.
Exactly.
Some
Yeah.
kid found this. He's like, what the fuck is this shit? Like,
Like they didn't even have a projector to put it on or anything. It just like literally just film. Like they didn't even know what was. There's no worth to it.
off pod, we were discussing how Scorsese and De Palma had a little rivalry at this time of like whose movie's gonna do better or who can make the better movie. And this is right in the middle of Scorsese's Mob Day movies, right? What if he was like, "Let's steal that shit"? He'd be like, "Here's Scorsese." He'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get your ass." Like, we're gonna
That's
steal your
really
fucking movie.
on crack.
Yeah.
Because you know how in Goodfellas there's the airport robbery sequence. He's like, that was inspired by real life when we stole Blowout.
We really did that. Oh my god.
Very smooth. Nobody ever knew.
I've uncovered it. Martin Scorsese is they.
But yeah, I mean,
Truth comes
little
out.
interesting stories like that is what also adds like this legend to this movie, I would say.
I wish I had the Criterion collection because I want to know all the behind the scenes stuff, and there wasn't that much of it on YouTube, honestly.
No, there wasn't. That was the only interview where you and Brian De Palma is kind of a little bit like David Lynch, doesn't really like explaining his movies too much. But I understand it from Brian De Palma because it's kind of like, well, my movies don't have this crazy twist type of things. Like I feel like he does a very good job of laying out what he wants you to know and where this is going and what the point of it is. And it's like kind of like if you want me to explain it, like,
From
come
the
on.
De Palma
Yeah.
movies I have seen, I don't feel like I need them explained. to me.
That's kind of sad.
Because that there isn't many interviews of him, and I had just
I
read
just
that
think
he
it's
kind
because
of
he's
doesn't.
underrated too.
That too. I mean, like you said, it speaks a lot that like Noah likes him because what kind of movies they don't make the same kind of movies at all.
Marriage Story.
Yeah.
It was inspired by Blowout. Like,
Yeah, right.
What? The Mayorowitz stories.
yeah, exactly. And
It's just like dressed.
because like you said, Quentin Tarantino and Brian De Palma, obviously you see that connection there, but then you see who he's revered by, and you may not see the connection, but it's definitely, his film style is what people really seem to gravitate towards. Like, and what I'm talking about, like, he lays out all of your information there for you to understand. Like, in Blowout, it's all there. Like, and this is the parts of the movie that I really like, when he's thinking back and like listening. We get, like you said too, we get different shots of how he remembers everything. He's like moving his pencil around like he's moving the sound bar or whatever, the microphone. Sorry, and just stuff like that. Like, or then when he's the intricate scenes that we get where he is editing the film, and it's just like you said, he doesn't like close-ups too much, but he uses them very like distinctly, like, oh, just his eyes or just his fingers going through the thing, or like we said, he's drawing the X and the S where he's gonna cut it. And that's where it's like an homage to film. I think this movie is meta on meta. Like, it's just speaking to Brian De Palma likes the process of making movies, likes the process of directing, likes the process of film.
All that workmanship, not the fancy side of it.
Nope.
Yeah, because I mean, John Travolta's character, if he is supposed to be like a stand-in for Brian De Palma, which I have heard that he actually likes doing that a lot. So it's like the characters are kind of dressed like how he would dress.
Yeah.
It's just
That's me.
Literally. You know how filmmakers are.
Yeah.
My main character is basically me.
That's probably why his wife is in the
movie.
movie.
But I've just heard that about so many directors, where it's like making the movie starts after we leave the set, because I don't like working with actors. I don't like being told how long the shot can be, and it's like once you're in the editing room and doing all the post stuff, is like, okay, this is where we make the movie, because you don't really have a movie, even though you've done all that shit. You don't have a movie yet. The movie is made on the computer or the analog machines or whatever.
You're right.
Yeah, so I've always heard that, like Alfred Hitchcock too, he would be like, oh, well, I already made the movie in my head, so we're going to do it exactly like that, and then I can be left to go make it how I want to make it. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what's up with directors. Like, what do you mean you don't like working with actors?
Yeah.
I don't like dogs. I'm an animal trainer.
Another interesting thing that I caught from the interview that really resonated with me, and I think he uses this probably in his style, but in this movie it really stands out to me. It's he's like, if you go out somewhere and you can't take a picture of it, then it's not going to look fucking better in film. Again, he's like, so that's how I frame my stuff. And he was talking about, like, this movie's in Philadelphia. He's from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So that's what made this film very easy for him to make. He's like, all of these spots that I recorded at, I've been there. I walked through there as a teenager. I know exactly where they are. I know all these weird spots that people don't usually know. And I think that's why this, like you said, this film becomes very personal to him. And he said himself that Blowout is probably his most personal film to him. And it has to do with that. His then wife is on it. He probably resembles himself in John Travolta's character, and it's in Philadelphia. And I think it's just like really interesting to hear him talk about, like, this movie. His approach is what I find most interesting, and I think Blood is like an obvious proof of like how good of a director Brian De Palma is.
Is this a masterpiece?
Honestly, I mean, I want to say yes. I don't know if it's my favorite film of his. I could have like an internal debate with myself about that.
Is it The Untouchables for you, like between that and
It's between Untouchables, Scarface, and this, which it might be between The Untouchables and this, but
I mean, I personally think Scarface is better overall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a personal bias. That is the fact that it's an epic. It's so long.
Yeah.
It's like someone's whole life.
And Scarface is fucking
I
incredible.
take that stuff into account,
Right.
like we saw with the Tarantino list,
Yeah.
which some of us disagree with. But like that grand scale of filmmaking is like it automatically puts it up a level for me, because it's like, okay, you've really stepped up your game.
Right.
Because Blowout to Scarface,
it's
what
different.
the hell? That's like two completely different.
Well, it's like we're talking about. Like, this is almost like a B movie.
Yeah.
And then Scarface is a fucking epic criminal, like pop culture icon.
It's
movie.
Lawrence of Arabia for gangsters.
It really like fucking is though. Like it's the epitome of a gangster.
Dead
Dead ass though.
They should put that on the Criterion.
If you're a DVD distribution company and you need juicy one-liners,
Bro, we got
hit up your
you.
boys. Like, you can use my letterbox
all
reviews.
day. But what I do want to say is that like the ending to this movie, I haven't felt like a type of way like I did about the ending of this movie for a lot of movies that I've seen.
That's sad, bro.
Dude,
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but it's just different.
I think so too. Yeah,
it's
I
just
see what
different
you
because
mean.
like this movie gets set up and like the whole time you're kind of like caught in between this weird realm of how serious is this? Like how serious is this ending gonna be? Like is it gonna be a happy ending? Is this movie sad? Like you're not really sure what is gonna happen because then it's almost like when you have that whole fucking like when he drives his car through the parade and it makes me feel like it's Ferris Bueller's. It's almost like it's like, all right, it's like a campy movie. And then the ending is so fucking, honestly, to me, like it's terrifying. Like
Dark.
it's harrowing.
Yeah.
It's very sad. And the score mixed in with it. And how at the end it literally just cuts and you're like, that's it? Like that's where we're gonna leave it with. It resonated with me the first time I saw it, and I thought about it for like days afterwards. So because of that, it really does hold a place in my heart. But I mean, it would be up for debate whether or not this is his best movie. But I would consider this like a masterpiece. This is like a paranoid thriller masterpiece.
I think Nancy Allen is what throws it off for me.
That's the biggest red flag of this movie. But I mean, she's not terrible.
No, and she has a lot of redeeming qualities.
She
too.
does.
It's just the
voice.
Just
The
fucking
voice.
voice.
Just the voice.
It
I had
is.
the same problem with Last Night in Soho. Remember, I said
Yeah,
the
you
main
did.
actress in that movie, like, grow up. I'm so done
Yeah.
with the baby doll
Thomas
voice.
and McKenzie.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like the one thing that I really don't like about this movie, and it's not like I don't even really not like
This
it.
conversation
I
reminds
think there's
me.
4-star masterpieces where it's like this isn't a 5-star
Right.
movie, but this is still a masterpiece.
That's how I would consider this.
And I
movie.
think it's because it's a genre film as well.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is a paranoid thriller masterpiece
Masterpiece.
Yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
like you could argue it's the best one of this type,
of that type of genre. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that you could.
or you could say blow up is better. And I'm not going to argue with you
Yeah,
because
which
I haven't seen this.
I haven't seen, so I would like to see that now. But
Kimmy was better.
Well, yeah. And it was interesting that I know you saw Kimmy too, and that was the reason I wanted to watch it. It was obviously influenced through Blow Up, Blow Out. But I think that's what we get. A good example of the premise can be actually already overdone, overused. It was already kind of mastered. If you think about it, it's one of those films like Blow Up already exists about a premise like this. The conversation already exists about a conversation.
Like, and that movie is considered one of Francis Ford Coppola's
Yeah.
best movies. So
And I mean, even in that interview, you talk about like Brian De Palma went to the Godfather set to interview Francis Ford Coppola about the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, be like, because that's how much it meant to Brian De Palma.
he wears those influences on his sleeve, and even if it's one of his peers, like, could you imagine if Wes Anderson or Paul Thomas Anderson was like, "I'm going to make a movie just like my friend,"
and go interview
and
him,
interview him
that.
and take everything I can from him just to make something he would
They
make.
get flame nowadays.
Hell yeah, you unoriginal bastard!
Yeah, exactly.
But I
just wanted to make the best movie I could.
How dare you use symmetry in your movies?
I know it has something to do with him always being like he's Francis Ford Coppola is older, so all, like the movie brats would look up to him. Like they all took from him, and like I said in the beginning of this, we said like Brian De Palma is your filmmaker's one of his favorite filmmakers, and I think this film is like it just shows why that you could draw so much influence from this.
I don't want to discuss the ending.
I don't
because
want to say
it's
it.
too spoilery,
Yeah.
and I think we've kind of done a good job of not spoiling the movie. But we do need to talk about the ending.
It's
like
incredible.
It's
incredible.
the very last scene.
Incredible.
So he's been on the hunt for this scream the entire film, right?
Yep,
Like he's
right.
looking for a good scream to use, and he ends up, getting it. Obviously, we won't talk about how or who. If you've seen this, you already know, and if you don't, go watch this movie because
Yeah,
it's
for real.
fucking.
It's
good as fuck.
awesome.
But to see this whole situation boil down to just one scream in a movie, it really does cement the fact that like, no, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this whole thing went down this long couple day like adventure, and it's just reduced to 3 seconds in a B movie.
Exactly. I love it. Like it's
Like,
great.
and okay, this movie bombed. People did not like it on upon release because of that reason.
Yeah.
Like this is dark. Like,
Yeah.
this is fucked up.
like that's I guess that's what I want to say is this movie was unexpectedly dark.
At the
Yeah.
and
Like I
and
didn't
it's
see
the way it
that
tied
coming.
up.
I was
That I think is such a like I was gonna make that point. So it's so great. Like the whole movie is summarized by a 3-second scream. That is the perfect scream, but that's all it
what
is.
it took
in a
to
B
get, what it
movie.
took to get there.
What it took to get
and
there.
especially at the end, like right before that, you have the news still talking about how everybody is still going along with whatever happened to the governor, and nothing's really changed, and like nothing's changed. It didn't matter.
Yeah, you could say it's relevant to today because, especially now, well, even now, this would not be news.
No.
Like it wouldn't. I wouldn't even hear about it. You know what I mean? I'd hear about it in 3 months when some YouTuber's making a video talking about like, oh, I've been keeping up with this case since the first day. No one would care.
No.
And
would.
it's really telling that this movie is so relevant to like today's society still.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's weird about it is that I think when it came up for us to talk about it seems to be very relevant than maybe if I had watched it 10 years ago. You know, it just seems very.
People would care even less than they cared now.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Than they cared back then.
It's like a pyramid for some reason. Like people cared, then they didn't care, and now like they care more. You know, so it's like even a couple like if I would have watched this in 2002, I don't know if I would have thought it was as good as it is now either.
Like I'm not trying to sound like a boomer, but you'd be like, dude, did you hear about it? And I'd be like, check out this TikTok. I mean, honestly, I don't think this would even be news nowadays.
Probably not.
I mean, it wasn't then either in the story, you know,
wasn't.
like that specific side of it. The John Travolta side of it is not even anything anyone cares about.
Damn, dude.
Which is, this movie leaves you with that feeling of like, damn.
Yeah, and even when I rewatched it,
It's a gut punch of a movie.
When I rewatched it the other day, I was just like, fuck. And then the score too.
Yeah, the score is amazing.
The score is just something bringing up too, like that I wanted to talk about. It's just that's like the stuff that you could tell like just comes from Hitchcock knowing the perfect moment to. So one of my favorite, I think it's like my favorite scene in this movie is when he finds out that the tapes are blank.
I was gonna say the same thing.
And so it's because like the audio wise, the tape starts like when something gets erased, and then the whole scene starts like circling around, and it's just like a tape recorder. And it just stood out to me. So like, because by the moment that you get that screech, that like blank, like okay, there's nothing in this tape, he gets up and realizes what happens.
Yep.
And it's such a perfect, just little like, well executed direction. You know, you have control of everything in this scene, and I think he takes. Like he makes sure everything is there. The soundtrack is there. How it looks. John Travolta's acting. How the secretary comes in and like the little exchange that they have. I just think that's like the best scene that in this movie. And there's a lot of really good scenes, but that's the one that like stood out to me really much.
That scene, and then the end scene basically was my favorite. But
it's a circle too.
What I wanted to talk about, exactly. What I wanted to talk about with the scene that you're talking about when he realizes that his tapes have been erased is when the camera is doing that 360. It's not just like a straight 360 either. The camera it speeds up, it slows down, it moves up, it moves down, and it creates this anxiety that you're like, holy shit, like my world is falling apart right now. Like there is something really going on. It's an incredible scene.
It's such a good depiction of that feeling that I've seen in film. Just like slowly us as the audience coming with our character realization that what has happened here.
It gives you that stomach drop. You know what I mean? It's a great
scene. And that was one of the scenes that he talked about that was really, really hard to record.
I can only imagine.
Because he's talking about like there could be nobody on the set, and you have to go full, like you said. He's not just going 360 in the line; he's just going up and down. So there can't be anything that the camera is going to catch. So they said they had to do it from like up the top and just kind of give direction from up there.
Interesting. Very cool. Yeah.
I mean, I had a good time talking about this movie.
I did too, dude.
You guys ready to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Some closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts, if you never heard about this movie, I'm not gonna put any blame on you because I never heard of it either. But now that you have, you got to go see this movie because I'm not gonna say this is the best movie ever made. I'm not gonna say this is, any of that. But if you are looking for a movie that you want to throw on and have a good time and enjoy, this is that kind of movie. Like if you're like, I don't know what to watch, but I just want to watch something good and entertaining, this is a movie that you're going to watch. Like this movie is phenomenal. I love it.
This movie doesn't try to trick you like some of the other movies that we try talking about sometimes. This movie isn't at the end an underlying thing that you didn't see coming. It sets everything up very well for you. It's great storytelling and it looks really cool. And it has some gory scenes, so there's always some stuff to look forward to in that.
It's a fun time at the cinema.
Until the end. But that's what makes it so good.
That's what makes it good.
Yeah, but it's a good time. Just it's a fast paced mystery where you're there with your main character and you're just gonna go on this adventure with them and it's all gonna lay out by the end. And I definitely think it's like a very satisfying ride.
I think so too.
To put it, I mean, I guess to put it that way.
It really is a ride.
Yeah,
Like, it really is.
Yeah. This is not the last De Palma movie we're going to do.
No.
Definitely
Expect
not.
to see more of them. He's definitely a filmmaker I would like to dive into a lot more
too.
and see a majority of his work. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't really have too many closing thoughts. I feel like you guys have already said it best, but I give this like a 4, 4.5.
Yeah, like I said, probably not a 5, but a really solid 4, 4.5. Something
3
around
thumbs
there.
up. Recommend.
Go see this damn movie. It's a good one.
Rent it
man.
on Prime. Rent it on Apple.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Hey, maybe it'll come back on streaming because I had seen it on like HBO or Hulu or Prime used to have it for free.
Well, once this episode gets out and they see that blowout kind of comes back into pop culture,
Yeah.
you know, because we have that type of
you
power.
know the weight that we hold with this podcast.
Hey, man,
so.
Nightmare Alley has nominated for Best Picture, and we made an episode.
That definitely was
I'm just
because it's on my
saying.
top 10.
Just saying. Just saying. Just saying.
I'm saying, if you see Brian De Palma making
Connect-
another movie this year,
Connect the dots.
you know where to send a thank you letter to.
I have bought a bottle of the Coppola wine, so I should be a producer on Megapolis.
Yeah, come on.
Oh man.
But for real, that was a good time. I enjoyed talking about this movie. This is the type of movie that it's a fun time to watch, but like if you're like us and you love talking about movies, I feel like there's just endless conversation to have. So we're cutting ourselves off now before we just babble for another hour about how cool this movie
Exactly.
is. Yeah. If you're listening to this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, share. Watch this movie with a friend. Maybe you guys will have some stuff to say about it. DM us on Instagram at the Grand Cinema Hotel if you've watched this. Yeah, man. Blowout.
Yeah, blow out. Go get a friend to watch this movie. This is a great one to watch with a friend, honestly. It's a lot of fun. So
All right, guys.
Peace
Love
out,
you.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.